Why don't we start first with the staff? So if we can go around the room, so to speak.
All right, I'm going to start with myself, Diana Isasa with Arlington Transit, and I'm going to pass it on to Pierre.
Good evening, everyone. Pierre Alleman, and I am the acting chief of Arlington Transit, and pass it to Clinton.
Good evening, everyone. Clinton Edwards, Transit Services Manager, and I'll pass it on to Kirk.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Kirk Dand. I'm the One Service Coordinator for Arlington, and I'm going to pass it on to Diane.
Good afternoon, everyone. Diane Trent, Bus Stop Manager. I'll pass it on to Josh Rebe.
Good evening, everyone. Josh Rebe, Transit Intern. I shall pass it on to, oh boy, Paul.
Paul Mounier. I'm the service planner for the ART fixed route. Josh Drucker.
Hi, everyone. Josh Drucker, Transit Technology Manager, and I'll pass it off to Kadisha.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Kadisha Wickham, and I am the marketing manager for ART. Am I the last one for Arlington Transit? Do we have anybody else that I need to pass it over to?
Robin and Ritesh.
Rocco. Yes, I'll pass it over to my main man, Rocco.
Good evening, Rocco Visconti. I'm one of the associate planners for Arlington Transit, and I'll pass it on to Ritesh.
Good evening, everybody. Senior Capital Project Manager. Passing to Robin.
Hello, I'm Robin McElhenney. I'm the Transit Capital Program Manager. I'm going to pass it on to Francis.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Francis Teddy. I'm the Grants Compliance Manager with Arlington County. And I pass it on to who? Back to Diana.
Thanks, Francis. So that's the county staff that will be joining the meeting today.
Okay, great. So glad you all could join us. Now, the members of the committee will introduce themselves. My name is John Carton. I'm the chair of the committee.
This is James Davenport, vice chair of the committee.
This is Roseanne Ashby, member of the committee.
This is Erica Chung, member of the committee.
Okay. Any other committee members out there? Okay, if not,
committee members, just a person public.
Who's that again?
See one Josh Tong, you on from the public?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. This is Jiaxing Tong, friend to Arlington Transit.
Okay. Thank you, Josh. Okay, anybody else that's not been introduced at this point? Okay, if not, let's go ahead. We'll start with public comment. So any member of the public that'd like to comment at the beginning of the meeting? Okay, if not, not hearing anybody. I'm not sure that we have a quorum at this point. Is that? Dan,
That is correct. There's only 4 members at this time, so there is no quorum yet.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll circle back to the approval of minutes when we get a quorum. So the next item here is the announcement of the results for the vote for the chair and vice chair.
Correct. Thank you, John. So these are the results of the elections for the TAC chair and vice chair. On this slide, you can see the results of the election. The circular graphs represent that there was an unanimous vote outcome. John Carton received 11 votes. There were no abstentions. That's the 100% of the votes. And for the TAC vice chair, Mr. James Davenport also received 11 votes. There were no abstentions. So these results confirm Mr. John Carter as the TAC chair and Mr. James Davenport as the TAC vice chair. And their appointments will begin in July of this year.
Okay, thank you, Diana, and thank you everyone for a vote of confidence in me in this position. I appreciate that. It's my pleasure to serve in this position. So I appreciate everybody's support for me as chair, and I'm pleased to have James as the vice chair too.
Thank you, John. I want to thank everybody for your faith in me, and I will do my best for the 2 years of my term this coming 2 years. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, James. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the update on the Transit Way extension to Pentagon City, that project.
All right, that's me again. So
Okay.
thank you. Good evening again. My name is Diana Isaza, one of the project managers for the Transit Bureau, part of the capital project section. And tonight I'm going to give you an update on the construction of the Transitway extension to Pentagon City project. Just a project overview. Just this slide is a project overview. It includes a map showing the location of the project. This project is being designed, bid, and built in segments. Segment 1, which covers Crystal Drive from 15th Street to 12th Street South and Longbridge Drive, has been completed. The construction was completed in 2023. Now we're preparing to move forward with the construction of segment 2A, which is our second phase. This segment covers 12th Street from East Street, Southeast Street to South Fern Street. The third slide covers the project scope of work and objectives. The objectives of this section of this phase is improve the corridor. This corridor is designed to prioritize transit service and pedestrian access and provide frequent, reliable transit service. On the scope of work for the transit infrastructure, we will be adding 2 new median transitway stations that will include new shelters and amenities. There will be 2 new dedicated bus lanes on each station, on each direction, and a new traffic signal on South Elm Street. Looking into corridor improvements for pedestrian safety and accessibility improvements, all sidewalk ramps along the corridor will be improved to meet ADA compliance. There will be added new pedestrian signals, and the crosswalks will be directional. We'll be providing curb extensions to provide shorter, safer pedestrian crossings. We will also be upgrading the corridor with street improvements. We will be adding new storm structures. There will be a full street regrading and paving. There has been currently some challenges with water drainage in the area along the street, so we're looking into improving all those challenges. We will be providing new pavement markings, and the traffic signals on 12th Street and South Furnace Street will be upgraded. Okay. This is an overview of the corridor. This is 12th Street, moving from southeast all the way to South Hayes Street. There are also renders of the aerial view of how we're anticipating the transitway will look like. The bus-only lanes are continuous from southeast to South Fern Street and continuing along on 12 all the way to Hayes Street. The two median stations will be located on Elm Street, one on each direction of the street. These are our completed milestones. This slide provides a render of how we're envisioning the transitway will look once this project is completed, but also just to bring you up to speed on what have we done since the last time. In fall 2023, segment 1 construction was completed. Then in spring 2024, the design for segment 2A was completed. Then we move into the procurement process. The ITV, the invitation to bid, was advertised in summer of 2024. During that time, Penn Place, the developer right across the street on 12th Street, completed the underground utilities, which was a task critical for us because they needed to complete their underground work before we could move forward to the construction of the transitway. And then in January 2024, the procurement process was completed. Currently, we are on pre-construction activities. This slide shows a timeline for this segment. Right now, we're working with the contractor on obtaining permits so they can mobilize on site and start construction. We're anticipating that this mobilization might happen by the end of March, beginning of April. The anticipated timeline for construction is 12 months. And then we're also forecasting a couple additional weeks after the construction is completed to coordinate with WMATA operations to run the system. So overall, we're looking to an anticipated start operations for summer 2026. This slide presents an overview of our maintenance of traffic, or MOT. Our MOT proposes a road closure of 12th Street from east to Fern. That means that the street will be closed to vehicular traffic during construction. The sidewalk along on the side south of the 12th Street will be open at all times to ensure that access to businesses and residential buildings is provided. The main reason for the closure of the street is public safety. We run an analysis, and some of the results find out that having an MOT that is picked up every day propose challenges on the public safety. Another thing is that another important element was the construction time. A full road closure minimized the overall time required for the project, reducing long-term disruption. And also, during the traffic and operations analysis, one of the results was that a phased construction will worsen the traffic conditions in the area. So the traffic will be redirected along 13th Street just for those 2 blocks during construction. And then on this slide, I show you more renders of how the transitway will look once this segment is completed. As we can see, going westbound on 12th Street, the bus lane will start right before passing Southeast Street. Each intersection will have left turn pockets for safety. There will be no left turn access to Elm Street because of the bus lanes. There will be bus lane only on each direction, as well as a new transitway station on each direction. This is another aerial view of the transitway. The bus-only lanes will be painted in red. These are concrete lanes because of durability. Another view of how the intersection will look. This is an aerial view of 12th Street and South Fern Street, showing the bus-only lanes. And that's the update. Any questions?
Okay, any questions for Diana? Diana, I've got one, and that is, do you have a feel for the kind of time that this will save for the bus riders once this is completed? Have you all made any estimates about that, running from the beginning to the end?
Can you expand a little bit of the question? Like the beginning, you mean where on the transitway?
Well, where it begins, the part that's completed now and running to the end, to just have a feel for how much time it might save people that are riding on the bus, not having to fool with the, being able to go around some of the traffic congestion.
Well, we are targeting our 8 minutes headways. But time savings, no, we didn't look at that since this section is brand new, it will be difficult to forecast.
Well, certainly that. Go ahead.
Pierre.
Just jumping, Diana, you just hit the point, the fact that we did run traffic and operations analysis along this corridor, but since this is a new section, it's hard to compare a time savings versus the existing, because the existing does go to Pentagon City, but it utilizes a different route. When we ran the traffic and operations analysis through this particular corridor, it does save time from utilizing this corridor on general purpose traffic by accessing the bus lanes and also the signal upgrades as well. But to compare it to today, it's hard to compare one to the other because they're two different types of corridors.
Okay. And then once this is complete, I guess we'll be working on a marketing and communications plan to get the word out to folks, to let them know, how much more efficient this is. It'll save them time and that sort of thing.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Diana or Pierre?
Mr. Chair, this
Yes.
is Roseanne Ashby. I just had a question. Which bus routes is this going to affect? I might have missed this information.
This is an extension of the current transitway. So right now, the transitway ends on 18th Street and makes a U-turn. It ends at 18th Street and then go back onto Clark Street. So right now, go ahead, Pierre, sorry.
Well, just route.
I thought you were going to say something.
Yeah, the route in the question is Metroway.
The Metroway.
It's the
I see.
It's run by Metrobus. It's the MW1. It's going to be the A1X after the Better Bus Network redesign.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, why don't we go to Star Service We Drive You update.
Good evening, Chair Carton, Vice Chair Davenport, members of the TAC committee. Once again, my name is Clinton Edwards, and I'm just going to give you a brief verbal update of our contract with We Drive You. As you all have been aware, and we've made you aware over the past few months, the county entered into a single agreement with We Drive You to be the sole provider of Star paratransit services for Arlington Transit. We are now approaching month number 4 of the contract. And overall, we have seen some improvements. I'll touch on a couple of them. During the months of December and January, our on-time performance dropped below 90%, which we really urgently wanted to improve. With that, we have introduced now an additional non-dedicated provider, UServe. UServe is a conglomerate of transportation network companies that have gone through the necessary background checks with the county to provide those non-dedicated services for STAR. We have got to the point that we have 44 drivers as of this past Friday that have been cleared to provide those services. And what UServe will allow is it will allow for vehicles that are not just the sedans or the vans to be able to provide additional vehicles. So with We Drive You, they may have 24 vehicles on the road, but when you add in the influx of the UServe vehicles, now you have upwards of 55 to 60 vehicles with those 44 operators. So we should definitely see an improvement in our on-time performance and get us back to the on-time performance hovering over 90% as we all are accustomed to. UServe is currently asking for additional trips. So as they have come online and more operators have cleared the background check, they have gone from asking from anywhere from 10 trips a day to 20 to now they're asking up to 30 trips per day. So we're excited about that. We'll be able to get folks where they need to go, improve the overall experience of passengers. Chair Aspey will, at 8:15, give a little bit of the report from the Accessibility Subcommittee. Today, we talked about some improvements in communications that the committee would like to see. So we'll have a communication between county staff and the subcommittee regarding how we can improve the communications for those passengers. One thing that we wanted to do from the last time that this committee met and the Accessibility Subcommittee between now and then is that we were laser focused on improving the overall operation. We have some work that we still need to do, and we're going to continue to work on that. So now that we've got more vehicles in place, the performance should improve, and now we're going to pivot toward making the communications better so that the STAR clients know exactly what's going on with their service. Second part of that is the mobile app as a part of this contractual change, and through the public engagements that we heard during the fall of 2023 and the winter of 2024, we heard loud and clear that the passengers wanted to be able to utilize their mobile app or their laptop or their desktop to be able to track where their trip is coming and be able to do some level of mobile payment. We have received demonstrations from 2 vendors as to be able to bring that online. And in the coming weeks, we'll be making a determination as to which of those vendors we'll be moving forward with so that the STAR clients are able to see when their trip is coming and track it and have all of the fun features that those on the ART fixed route system have. So we're looking forward to that. That's definitely going to push the STAR program up into the quote unquote 21st century and be able to it's going to help improve the communication because the STAR users now be able to just look on their mobile device and see when their trip is coming. That's where we are with STAR right now. Our goal is that by the time this committee meets again, we will be working toward implementing, if not have it up and running, the mobile device and the mobile application. Chair Carton, that is the update on the STAR service right now. Any questions?
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear we're moving in the right direction, improving performance. And tell me again, the performance goal, you said it was 90% on time?
Above 90%. We've hovered between 90 and 95% for years. And so we've seen a dip in that since we went to the sole contractor. But with the implementation or the onboarding of UServe, we definitely are expecting those on-time performance numbers to get back above the 90% and improve the passengers' performance because it's not been what we have been expecting since December the 1st.
Right. Well, that's great to hear that you've got the extra resources so you can improve. And also, it's great to hear about the mobile app because, you know, these days, we're sort of spoiled with all the information we get. So that mobile app is going to reassure people that, yes, you know, their ride is on the way and hopefully give them an idea when it's going to be there and that sort of thing so that, you know, everybody's feeling better about the service and, like you say, really have it in the 21st century. So that's good to hear. Okay, other questions or comments for Clinton?
So I have a totally different view of how STAR service is going. Would you like me to say that now or when Roseanne talks about the STAR subcommittee?
Okay, and remind me your name again.
My name's James Mountain. I go by Jim. I'm a fairly new member of both of these committees,
Okay.
STAR subcommittee and this one.
So I'll tell you what, why don't we wait till the accessibility subcommittee, till Roseanne gives her report, and then we can talk about it then. How's that sound?
That sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, other comments, questions?
Clint, this is James. You may have mentioned this, but how many of the users of STAR service actually have mobile phones and can use the app?
That would be part of our communications plan once we make our determination to figure out how many of the users actually utilize that. Looking at it from a perspective of those that use STAR on the web to book trips is a very small percentage of the trips booked that are done through STAR on the web versus just you're calling in directly into the call center.
All right.
I just want to be clear on that mobile app. It doesn't exist yet. It may exist at some date in the future. Just want to be clear, it's not something that's available now. We're supposed to get an update on when it might be available in a month or two. Is that right, Clinton?
Yeah, that's correct. It does not. It's an existing product, but it is not available to STAR users currently.
Okay, good to know. All right, other comments, questions? Okay, if not, Diana, do we have a quorum yet? Do we circle back to the minutes?
No, there's no quorum yet.
Okay, okay. All right. If there's no other comments on the STAR service update, well, let's go on to a WMATA performance update.
This is Kirk. I'm pulling up the slides right now. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I was requested to do a presentation on the WMATA budget and DMV moves, which is basically the same presentation that I gave in January. But there are some updates. So in this, I'm going to review WMATA FY26 budget and DMV moves update. And we'll jump right into the budget. So on the left-hand side, I have taken the first screen of the budget book from Metro's proposed budget. And this was the one that they went out to the public for public hearing. It was a $5 billion budget. There was 2.4 billion in capital and 2.6 billion in operating. Then in February, on February 27th, they did a FY26 revised budget. And it went from 5 billion to 5.1 billion. And you'll notice that 0.1 is in the capital side. And I will explain this math. So what has been occurring? We just, in February, at the end of February, they met 47 consecutive months of ridership growth throughout the metro system. And with that increase in ridership, there was an increase in revenue. This was not originally what they had forecasted for ridership. So there was savings in the fact that there was like $440 million worth of extra revenue that they had not counted on. So as you may remember in the FY25 budget, it was determined due to the fiscal problems that they were facing that they were going to flex preventive maintenance monies from capital to operating to make a balanced budget, basically. It's not a great practice to use capital monies in operating. In the world of transit that I came from, which is far smaller than Metro, it was a never cross the streams type of thing. But with the larger organizations like the T and SEPTA, etc., the FTA has given them a certain amount, which I don't know the exact amount, but a certain percentage that they can use of the capital monies to take care of the preventive maintenance. So with the savings that they had from that, they are flexing less money from capital to operating, getting back on the right track. And in doing so, there's extra money to be used in capital. Now, it had been determined that they were only going to do projects that were currently underway or state of good repair with the capital. Some of the state of good repair, the long-term thinking state of good repair, was being put on hold because of the lack of funding and the need to use the monies wisely to ensure safety and the frequent and reliable service for the public. So now that they have this extra money, they are able to then take that money that had been being used in operating, put it back in capital, and then it was determined that they might as well enrich some of the things to make the service better for the public. So that's where the 0.1 comes from. This is a breakdown. This is a chart from the budget book as well that shows what happened in FY25, what was in the proposed budget, and what's now in the FY26 stuff that was put out in February. The only places that you can see change really happening is there was more revenue than had been expected, and then the overall subsidies remaining the same. However, it will be $1 million less for Virginia and $1 million more for Maryland based on the amount of service that's occurring. So really, in the grand scheme of billions of dollars, $1 million isn't that much. But it works out on Virginia's side. So where we are right now, we're in March, so they will be looking to adopt the budget at the end of the month or probably at the beginning of April. That gives them the time that they need to file the paperwork for the federal applications, and that needs to be in place in May so that they can then have everything all lined up for a start on technically the fiscal year starts on July 1st, but the service week starts on the Sunday before that. So that is where we're at with the budget. I can pause there and see if anyone has any questions on the budget, because DMV moves, let me just say, they haven't met since December. The next meeting is March 24th, and the working groups are working. So budget, anybody have any questions?
Well, I've got one comment, and that is, I'm happy to hear that it's been 47 consecutive months that revenue has grown.
The ridership has grown, and in turn, revenue is unrealized revenue is then seen.
I'm happy to hear that. Have you seen any sudden surges like this week or last week with the government having to return back to the office and in ridership? Or is it too early to tell?
I've been seeing increases in ridership for quite a few weeks now. And I've been asking the question of the powers that be over at Metro who will speak with me. What are we going to do? Because we're seeing overcrowding on the rail in certain places at certain times. And the budget, the current budget that we're operating on was set for 6-car trains with some 8-car trains. But what they're determining that they can do is stick extra cars onto those trains strategically when they start seeing the trends of the overcrowding, and they are even taking that into account with the service on the rail for the next fiscal year. We don't yet know how this is all going to play out with the new administration, because a lot of people, as we are anecdotally seeing, are going back to the office only to have their office closed. So Metro feels confident that they will be able to survive the and make sure that the customers are taken care of in the upcoming years here by making tweaks here and there.
Mm-hmm. Another comment is, so when I've been riding, I've been seeing, you know, the higher barriers at the fare gates, you know, to hopefully preclude a lot of the jumpers. Do they feel like they're collecting more revenue as a result of those barriers?
Most definitely on the rail.
And some of their, and I know they've had enforcement initiatives too, I believe.
Yes, and they've started focusing on the bus as well. The bus is a much harder thing to do because you don't have a turnstile. So they're taking other approaches on the bus, but they are seeing more revenue than they had been. They look at it as a tap or no tap. And no tap means that the person evaded the fare on the rail. And they're seeing a lot more taps than no taps as far as, you know, the balance that they had been seeing.
Okay, well, that's good.
And the buses are definitely seeing more passengers. I'm not seeing pre-COVID level on the routes that I ride, but I'm definitely seeing a lot more people, and I'm definitely seeing more people on the rail.
Okay, well, that's good.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Hey, Kirk, I got one more question for you, and that is, I know we've started with the transition to the new bus numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be an educational process for all of us. So I guess that's a matter of just taking time to, you know, for people to figure out, you know, what the new is, you know, as opposed to the old they've been used to.
So they're starting to put up the new signs at the bus stops. Well, I say new, but they're interim signs that are going to show the current bus route's name as well as the Better Bus Network redesign bus names. And they're going, you know, they just started like a week ago, I think, and they're going to be rolling that out to all the stops. That'll be the first stage of the education piece, and then there's going to be a full-on, from what I understand, communications and education piece to get the word out to the public what's going on. But they're going to do that probably more close in, because most people don't even check signs until the bus didn't show up. if you know what I mean. So, if they go all out right now, they would almost have to go back out and do it again, is my understanding on how they're looking at it. So, they do have something planned. I've not seen what that education piece will be. However, on the Better Bus Network redesign page, and I can get that out to you guys. There is a breakdown of what the new routes are and how they compare to the old routes.
Okay.
So, like, I happen to know the A1X because I ride the Metroway to get to work. So that's how I know that one. I don't necessarily know. I know that the 16M will be the A40, but I don't know necessarily all the other ones.
Okay.
Central, I just focus on what affects my life at this point. But yeah, I'm even going to need to learn all of this. Where everything that we've known for the last X years is all out the window, and we have to learn the whole new system. But hopefully, that whole new system is going to move more people more efficiently and get them to the places that they want to go.
Right. Yeah. Well, you think here, like, everybody's been used to the 16 on Columbia Pike, and I know growing up, I used to ride the 12 in Alexandria, and
Right.
all those numbers that go way back. But it'll be a learning experience. But hopefully, it'll be better organized too, with the leading letter, telling you, what jurisdiction the bus is in and that sort of thing.
Right.
So,
And hopefully, they seem to think that this will be easier for people to navigate, the names, as well as it'll be easier for the tourists. So, I'm willing to give it a shot, but I know the 16s go down the pike, so now I don't know, what's up. But I also just moved here, 5-6 years ago, so I have to relearn every time I move. So it's just something that we have to go through.
yeah. All right.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you. Yeah,
Kurt,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I just want a quick question. I hope it's not related to the budget at all, but it's related to ATO, the implementation of it. I read an article in, I think, December that Amada was putting ATO on the red line. I was just wondering how that's going, and it also seemed to insinuate that they're going to expand that ATO for the rest of the system. I was wondering what the status of that is.
So they did roll it out to the red line. They have experienced, if you listen to WMSC, the Safety Council, they were quick to bring up some overruns where the front of the train went too far, etc. All in all, though, it's been pretty much a success, and it's increased the efficiency. That paired with the automatic door opening, the red line has been able to move, let's say, quicker, because there's less human intervention. And once the system entirely is working in that, then you take the red light overruns and stuff. It's no longer a human thing. The train's going to know that it has to stop. It's my understanding that at a couple stations there's some let's call it interference, where signals are interfering and they're having to take human control at those stations while they try to figure out where they need to put shielding in on the circuits that are currently in that station. But yeah, once everything's proven, then it's going to roll out to the rest of the entire system, and that's part of the savings that they're hoping to see in the coming years, because then the train can run more efficiently. You can have more trains going for the same amount of money, if you will. So, because it's sort of like if you have a breakdown on 95 in the morning, it takes about till like midday for that to clear out. So if a train had to slow down and stop at a station, it slowed down the other trains, and then everything moves slower. Whereas if everything's moving in an automatic fashion, then we can realize more efficiency, thus less
Especially
money.
especially if that track, that particular station is serving two lines instead of just one.
Right.
Slow down
Right.
even more so. And it's good to hear too, because I think it really will help Armada and the operations of Metro. And I think the patrons and the riders are going to see that improvement. So thank you for that.
All right. Anything else? All right, I yield the floor. Have a great one.
All right, thanks, Kirk. Okay, next thing is Arlington's proposed 26 budget, the ART 43 headway reduction, and the FY 25 service metrics to date.
All right, good evening. Give me a moment here. Apologize. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go over we do have a recommendation for the proposed budget and then some metrics for the service. First off, in the proposed budget this year, we were asked to put up some service for cuts to reduce our budget. We had a few recommendations. What became the county manager included in his budget was a frequency reduction on the 43. Currently, the 43 is a 10-minute peak service, 15 minutes off-peak, running from Crystal City to Courthouse Metro Station via Roslyn. Those are the only 3 stops along the route. It provides a quicker trip than you would get on the rail, so it is a very popular service. The proposal is to bump this down to 20-minute all-day frequency. I have been working on this. I'm not sure it's going to go all the way down to 20-minute frequency. That was a high-level planning number for the budget, so it may be slightly better. But the reason we chose the 43, it is the highest frequency route in the system that includes like the 41 and the 45 along Columbia Pike. And there's a direct alternative in rail. While this does provide a advantage over rail, there still is that alternative. Looking at the passenger impacts, the service won't meet the VRE train as closely during the peak periods. Right now, that 10-minute frequency, basically every train that comes in, you have maybe a 5-minute wait before you can get on the bus and take off, or when you take the bus in, maybe up to a 10-minute wait to take the bus when you're going out. I don't think that that's going to be a significant difference. It won't be that very quick 5 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever. But I think within 10 to 15 minutes, you will be able to get on a train from, as I've been matching up the schedule with the VRE trains. And there's a slightly longer wait time between buses. Again, it will still be faster than rail, but it will not have the same frequency that it does now. And I don't know if does anyone want to ask any questions about that before I move on to the metrics. Okay. So just monthly ridership. we have seen pretty sustained growth through since we started coming out of the pandemic in, I believe, about mid 2021. And you can see that that growth has been sustained as we continue to go forward. As you can see, there are several months of double-digit and almost 20% increase in December. Pre-pandemic regular transit service, it was considered a very successful year if you had 3.5 to 4% growth, and that would be very successful. So this is kind of unprecedented growth. I think this year we may get over our 2019 numbers this year, this fiscal year coming up. I think we'll be back to where we were pre-pandemic. But as I said, I have not seen the growth slowing at any rate at this point. And you can see the numbers there and the increases. On-time performance over that period, we're trying to improve. There has been some decrease since July and August. Typically those are slower periods of the year, a little easier to stay on schedule. We are working on some changes to service, to work on OTP. These would be timing changes. They wouldn't have a fiscal impact, but they are changes where you allot different times between bus stops so that the bus can travel more smoothly. Like sometimes you'll be on a bus and you'll notice they'll stop for a minute or two at a stop even if there's no one there, and then continue if they're ahead of schedule, or they try to catch up and may drive a little quicker than we would like, obviously safely, but maybe a little quicker than we would like. And for art student ridership, I think, Lauren, I saw you on if you wanted to speak on this.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Lauren Breyer, program analyst. On the screen right now, we have the student iRide program numbers. As a start of last January, we also expanded the iRide cards to also work on Metrobus. So we also are showing Metrobus data. For January of 2025, the ART has experienced 12,554 student trips. This is up from the 8,000 that we had in fiscal year 24. And from the time period of September through January, we had a total of 70,000 in 2025 and 50,000 in 2024. So it's about 20,000 rider increase for this time period on ART. In January 2025 on Metrobus, we've seen 16,375 student trips, and this is up from 4,783 in January of 2024. So it's almost a threefold increase. We're starting to see the changes over month for Metrobus iRide, which is very exciting. But so that brings the monthly total student trips on ART and on Metrobus to almost 30,000 in January. For the time period of September through January, we've experienced 157 total student trips across ART and Metrobus. We've started to sort of see a plateau, I'd say, on ART bus of student ridership, and we're starting to see that same plateau, I think, in Metrobus. However, during the winter and spring, going into the spring year, we've been doing a distribution at schools pretty much once a month. Distributing cards has also not slowed down from the Arlington Public Schools side. So there could be an increase going forward, but I'd say that this number that we're seeing here on the screens are the students who are using transit, who have the card, who are taking more trips. But we're also now expanding that pool. The students that I've talked to during the distribution sort of seem like they might be newer to it. And actually next month April, we have planned to meet with the Student Road Safety Club at WNL and do sort of a how to ride transit presentation along with the distribution at the school. Next slide, please.
This sort of the next slide shows ART monthly student ridership data for the fiscal years going back fiscal year 23, 24, and 25. And it also shows the percent change between 24 and 25. We've seen, on average, a 34% growth for July through January. These are really, really big growth numbers. If Paul was saying 3 or 4 was pretty big before, in 2019 numbers, 40% is like crazy. And we're super excited to hear that students are excited about riding transit. And I'd say this increase is rather large because, as you can see with the asterisks, in October through January fiscal year 24, we did have to estimate ridership for some of that due to the fare free rush impact. But at the same time, we also eliminated routes. So, what's to say, students are clearly excited to ride ART, and that number does continue to increase. From the time period of July through January of 2024, we experienced 70,000, and for that same time period between July 25 for fiscal year 25 to January 2025, we've seen 93,000 or almost 94. I think that's it from me. But
just
yeah.
one question. So a little dip in January, was that because of snow days and
Yeah.
nobody was out there riding?
Yeah, we ran severe weather service throughout January, and when we did do our snow considerations, we do consider if schools are opened or not. Yeah, during those time periods, APS was closed on January 8th. Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Rocco.
All right, I'll be presenting the metrics for STAR. So you can go to the next slide. So this is the monthly ridership up through January 2025. This is a comparison between fiscal year 2024 and fiscal year 2025. So in 24, we had 3,834 riders in December and 3,943 in January. And in fiscal year 25, we had 3,584 in December and 3,380 in January. Also what Lauren was saying, we ran a number of severe weather days as a result of the inclement weather in January, which led to a higher reduction in service. But there still was a reduction in service due to some of the service challenges that have been outlined with STAR that started on December 1st. So that contributed to a slight decrease in the number of passengers carried compared to last year. The total 2-month remains about the same, about 0.5 difference. And as it's noted, the fares were increased July 1st of 2024. And that at the time the fares were changed, there was no substantial decrease in ridership as a result. But there has been a decrease since then, again, as a result of severe weather and some of the service challenges with STAR. So that's everything for that.
Okay, thank you.
That is all we have on the metrics and the service changes. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question, sir.
Yes.
My name is Donald Greco. I moved to Arlington about 8 years ago, and Brain Injury Services introduced me or put me on to STAR. I go to 3 to 5 doctors easily a month, and STAR was such a gift. And I thank Arlington County for providing that service. I was using taxis, and you can imagine what that did to my limited income. And second, I'd like to thank Arlington County for the people who answer the phones when I call, or when you call to make a reservation for a STAR ride. They're so pleasant, and they always do exactly what you ask them to do in terms of booking the ride. So those 2 points. The third point is your change from using diamond vans to pick up and eliminating taxis. When you go to doctors, as you know, I go for an MRI or a CAT scan. I don't know when I'm going to be finished. So before, I would do a will call. I'd get out, do a will call, and I'd be picked up within a reasonable time. And with the new setup, it's I've waited 2 hours, and it has nothing to do with the personnel. I understand, but it's just logistics of how things are set up now. And I just wanted to point it out and hope that there'd be some change. But I wanted to thank you folks, Arlington County, for having a STAR available to people like myself to get the doctor. I've only used it for doctors, only. I know I can use it for shopping, etc., but I only use it for doctors, and you've been a lifesaver. And I want to thank you, and thank you for the people that you have answering the phones. Thank you very much, folks.
Thanks for sharing that. It's so good to hear.
Well, it's true.
Good.
But if at some point, and again, I understand the logistics of what you have to deal with, what you have to juggle, but I can't lock in a time, or not just me, anyone, when you can be finished with the dentist or the doctors, a colonoscopy or et cetera. There's no set time. You can pick me up at 2, then bring me back at 3. You logistically can't say that.
Right.
Well, if anything can be done in regards to that matter, for medical, not for shopping, but for medical, I would appreciate it. But once again, I'll stop. Thank you for Arlington County providing such a service for people who depend on it. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks for sharing that with us. Any other comments on the STAR report? Okay.
Is that the end of the STAR report? I thought Roseanne was.
Well, actually, we're going to be doing the accessibility subcommittee report in just a minute. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's not up on the agenda yet. Is that right?
That's
Got
correct.
some other.
So
Okay.
what I want to do was just circle back and ask Diana, do we have a quorum at this point so we can consider approval of the minutes?
No, we don't have a quorum yet.
Okay. All right. So we may have to move those to the approval at the next meeting. Okay. All right. All right. So let's go ahead to report. Well, actually, before we go to the accessibility subcommittee, and since we're running a little ahead of time, let me just share one thing with you. And that is Mariella Garcia Kohlberg was not able to be with us tonight. She's traveling, but she wanted to do an update on Arlington's transportation future. She's representing the committee for us. And she says that the future folks continue to do an outreach to get feedback on the transportation plan, including open houses and pop-ups. She said there are 2 last in-person engagements for this phase. This week there's an open house on Thursday, and then there's a pop-up at the National Landing Water Park on Saturday. So the comment period for this phase will stay open through Sunday, March 23rd. So Diana, I would ask you to send out this information to the committee so they can look at the information that Mariella would like us to consider. And then at their leisure, they can read this and then respond back to Mariella with any comments that they have input for the plan.
Sounds good. Well done.
And then it's interesting, she concludes and she says, this homework is due March 31st. Okay, so she has a good sense of humor. But anyway, Dan, thanks in advance for sending that out to folks. And then if you all would take a look at it and respond, I'd appreciate it, and so would Mariella. Okay, let's go on to the report from the Accessibility Subcommittee.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I do want to say, as this gentleman, Mr. Greco, who spoke, you have to understand that people with disabilities in Arlington County really, really do value the STAR program. But unfortunately, since December the 1st, this program has become a much weaker paratransit program. And, we talk about 83, 84% on-time performance, but what that doesn't say, or what you need to think about, is that 16 or 17% of those trips then are late. And when they're late, they can be substantially late. I'm talking an hour or more. And when people have medical appointments, when they have employment, being late like that is really unacceptable. During our meeting tonight, we had a number of public comments, and I know Jim Mountain has a particular story that he can share. He's on our committee, but we heard a number of stories where the rides were late, particularly on weekends when the STAR call center is closed. There is no communication between We Drive You and the passengers. They're supposed to call the passengers if they're going to be more than 10 minutes late. They do not call. It's very sporadic. You can't count on it. The number to reach We Drive You was never publicized. Then I also heard some very appalling safety concerns, folks in wheelchairs not being secured properly, being bounced around in the van in such a way that's really unsafe for them. Some drivers being very unsafe. Many of the veteran drivers, I think, are very good. But apparently some of the newer drivers, drive like they're driving a race car or whatever, and don't necessarily abide by traffic rules. And so the concern is, what is We Drive You doing about these unsafe drivers? We talked about training, but we also talked about dealing with these people individually and maybe having to remove some of these new drivers if they're not able to improve. So, we heard a lot of these kinds of safety considerations. Communication. We talked about that over and over again. People are left in the dark, not knowing when the ride is coming, if the ride is coming. I'll let Jim talk and tell you his particular situation, but I will tell you that his is not the only story that we heard tonight. So, Jim, did you want to share?
Sure. Thank you. Should I do the whole story?
Well, whatever you.
Well, I'll try to do it quickly. But so this is, and this has happened to me many times. But I'll just give you one example that happened this past Saturday evening. I was in DC. Had a 7:30 pickup that evening in DC. At about 7:40, I started to wonder why they were not there yet. I called Stars. Their voicemail just says not open. So I tried to call Diamond. I tried to call We Drive You. No one answered to any of those numbers. At around 8:15, I didn't know what to do at that point. I was about 10 blocks from the nearest metro stop. So I rolled in my wheelchair, was in the 30s that night, wasn't prepared to be out in the cold that long because I was going from the building to the shuttle, but finally got there, went down the train station on the platform to get my ride. And then at 8:30, 1 hour late, while I'm waiting for the train, they called and said, oh, they're there at the original location waiting to pick me up. And I said, well, you're an hour late. I'm 10 blocks away from there. Can you just pick me up here? And they said, oh, they're not allowed to change the pickup place. I said, but it's freezing cold and I'm 10 blocks away. They said, there's nothing we can do. And so I rolled back there and the driver was a young person who had been there for about a month. He drove like he's playing a video game. Tailgating, stop quickly, speeding up, accelerating, decelerating, with me strapped in a wheelchair in the back of his van. The whole way home, he complained about how bad the company was, how he's, hours late because they don't have enough drivers. He told me what he's paid per hour. I don't know how they can get good people. He also said that they don't check driving records. They just do a drug test. So that's just one of many stories I have of how poor the service is. And to me, it's unreliable, it's unsafe, and it's disrespectful to the disabled people that have to use it.
And just, I do want to share that, we talked to county staff. They are trying to deal with this contractor. And we talked to them about issuing fines to the contractor. They have penalties written into the contract. I think they're looking at that. But something needs to be done. Now, the introduction of USERV, which is the subcontractor that uses, they're like Uber and Lyft drivers, that will help passengers who are ambulatory, but most of those cars are not wheelchair accessible, I would say. So, but that would take some of the load off these vans that do a lot of the shared ride services. But I guess what I'm saying is we really want to see improvement. It's 3.5 months that people have struggled with this. Some people have had to try to find alternate ways to get where they need to go. And it's not a rosy picture right now. And so I don't want to sugarcoat it. I do know the county staff is working hard to make changes, and our subcommittee certainly is trying to be as supportive as we can be. But it's been a difficult and frustrating journey.
May I say something? This is Donald Greco.
Yes.
Okay.
The gentleman just spoke, and ma'am, what you just said, I found that before January, when the Star van would pick me up, literally 99% of the time, I felt very comfortable and very safe with the driver.
Mm-hmm.
Today, for example, I had a driver take me, and he was talking on the phone to somebody, and he was more into the phone than he was into the driver.
Right.
And you don't feel very safe and very comfortable. And that happens, I would not frequently, but more than I would like to happen, more than happened in the past. So I do think there's a valid point to that.
Are there questions, John, from yourself or the vice chair or anyone else? We're happy to answer them.
Yeah. I'll let Clinton respond to this, but from my perspective, that's not the kind of service we want to see. Just hope that, it's starting to get better. And I just, Clinton, I'll let you respond to it.
Yes, one thing that we discussed as Ms. Ashby mentioned is that we talked about communications and how we can improve communications to the passengers. What I did this evening between the accessibility subcommittee meeting and now was just kind of put up some of the themes we heard in written format to make sure that that's the types of things that the committee are looking to improve on. All of those things that we've heard are valid and things that we are actively working to make changes on as far as Mr. Mountain's experience and just making it better. One thing was that one suggestion that came out of the committee was that when the call center closes, that we set up the automatic telephone from the Star Call Center to automatically redirect to WeDriveU's line, and also publishing the WeDriveU's line so that when the call center is not open, that folks can be able to know whom to contact directly. Because the way the process works now, that clients are to call the WeDriveU dispatch line directly when the call center is not open. So we took note of those things, circulated those over to Ms. Ashby so we can make sure we capture those things so we can work with WeDriveU directly. I think one small thing that we can definitely improve on early is that, or immediately, is that when passengers' trips are being late or the vehicle's going to be late, that they get some level of a courtesy call just to let the folks know that the vehicle is going to be 20, 15, 10 minutes late. And so those are the type of things that we can do just to really improve the customer experience immediately.
Oh, that's the end of my report, John.
Yeah.
Mr.
Well,
Chair,
let me just ask this too. Is there
Oh.
some way for people to report, if they've had a bad experience with a particular driver, particularly if they're
Yes.
not driving
Yes.
safely? Is there a way for them
Ab-
to report on
yes.
that particular driver so we can maybe
A-
weed out the drivers that are not as good as the others?
Absolutely. They can
Yeah.
do that. They can call the STAR call center. There is a dedicated person there who answers those or, responds to those complaints. I think what happens sometimes is that people feel discouraged and they don't complain. But if they don't, our subcommittee encourages people to file the complaints because that's the only way the county staff is going to know if there's issues. And I'm sorry, I think I heard Kent's voice. All right, Kent, were you trying to speak?
yes, ma'am, but go ahead.
No, go, please. I want to make sure you have an
Well,
opportunity.
I was just going to suggest it's been 3.5 months. No fines have been levied, even though the contract, this is not a new provider. This is a historic provider, at least 20 years, knows the lay of the land, knows what they're getting into when they bid on it, should have been prepared. The service is degraded significantly over these 3 months. If they're not going to do a fine, if county staff can't do it, can we meet and could the committee recommend to the county manager that the county manager meet with this provider and see if he can get something out of them to get things moving? People with spinal cord injuries using wheelchairs can't control their body temperatures. For a person to be out in 30-degree weather for 10 blocks is unfathomable. The county's going to wait until something tragic happens and then have a huge responsibility legally to deal with. And before that happens, somebody needs to take action.
Yeah, I mean, Kent is absolutely correct. Kent is on our subcommittee as well, as you know. But we do have to take this very, very seriously.
Ma'am, if I may, I agree with what Ken had to say. It's very, very valid points he made.
Okay. Clinton, do you have any suggestions here?
Yes, we discussed this at the accessibility subcommittee meeting, and the county manager's office is aware of the challenges that we have experienced since We Drive You became the sole provider on December the 1st.
Okay. Well, how about at the next meeting, if you can give us a report on improve, things you've done to try and improve this service so that we see it getting back to where it needs to be, and some of these concerns addressed, because safety and customer service and everything else, we just need to make sure that we hit the right level on that, because this is an important service to an important community here in Arlington. So we need to make sure somehow we're riding the ship here and delivering a better product than it sounds like we have been.
And John, just to let you know, Clinton has absolutely agreed to work with us, as has Rocco. He's going to keep us apprised as he meets with We Drive You, and we may need to call upon this TAC even before the next meeting to help us take some action. So, whether it be a letter or something that needs to be sent out, I think having your support would really be helpful as we go through this process.
Okay. Well, we certainly all want to see it improve. So, Clinton, why don't you keep us apprised on, this process and how it's going? As Roseanne and maybe others work with you on trying to improve this level of service.
Yes, sir. We can definitely do that.
Okay.
Hey, John.
Roseanne? Yeah.
This is James. I just wondered if I could ask Clinton a real quick question.
Sure.
How long? Just wanted to ask you real quick. How long is that contract with the current provider? We Ride, is that the name of it? How long is that contract?
We Drive You was an existing
We Drive You.
provider. Previous to 2025, they had a 5-year contract with 5 one-year options and then a 3-month extension. So they are acutely familiar with the Arlington Star program. This new contract is for 5 years with the options to extend it 5 years after that.
But the problem is though that before they had Red Top as well, and so We Drive You, which used to be called Diamond, they don't have the capacity to serve the customers as the two contractors together were able to serve. That's what happened.
And the level of service between the two was very different, where Red Top would let you know exactly where the driver is and give you updates throughout. Diamond gives you 0 communication. And we went from kind of 50% good, 50% bad to 100% bad now.
Very good. Very true.
Well, it sounds like part of this would be getting the app working so that, you know, the riders would have some real-time feedback on when the ride's going to show up. So
yeah, absolutely. Those things would help. Yeah.
What sort of timeline do we see on the app, Clinton, getting it operational?
We are looking to make a determination on the vendor by the end of the month, and then we'll look to implementation. So that between the two that we have as finalists, we'd have to look at a timeline for actual implementation. There are considerations with both the call center and the We Drive You, the provider, both use the existing app. So there would have to be some integration between the two, regardless of which way we go, and some modifications to the existing contracts, because they both use 2 different types of technology, and only one of those is going to be the single platform that the STAR program uses.
Okay.
But to be honest, in the meantime, and I agree with the app, I think it's wonderful. We've got phones and we've got texting and we've got other ways to communicate, and there's just no excuse for not communicating. There really isn't.
Very good.
Right. Nothing beats good communication, because
no,
it's tough to be out there just not knowing if anybody's coming at all.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
or when they're coming.
I mean, if it doesn't work, it's good to know when, you know, why it's not working and then when they can get there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right. So Clinton, if you'll keep us posted on, you know, things, you know, how things are going and improvements that are being made here, we'd certainly appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Are there any additional items from the committee members or staff that they'd like to share at this point? Okay. If not, our next meeting is going to be May 13th, Tuesday, May 13th. So we'll look forward to seeing you then. So thank you all for participating tonight, and we'll look, and remember to fill out that survey that'll be coming to you from that Diana's going to send to you. Mariella, really appreciate it. So
you mean the homework project? You mean the homework project?
That's the homework. That's right.
That's the homework. Okay.
And nobody wants to be late with their homework, right?
No.
We're not for sure. Yeah.
And the one excuse we don't accept is that the dog or the cat got it. Okay, so good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Good night. Have a good night.
Have a good evening.